If you're looking to buy a compact electric car, then you should probably stick around and watch this review of the Volvo EX30. I'm going to cover off the good, the bad, and the occasionally frustrating features of this tiny EV. Now, there's going to be a bunch of new rivals landing for this car in the next 12 months, so the question must be asked, should you rush out and buy an EX30 now, or should you hold off and check out one of its competitors instead? Let's answer that question now. So the EX30 is kind of like a subcompact SUV, and most of its current rivals are a little bit bigger, like the Hyundai Kona Electric. But some of these new rivals that are coming are going to be around the same size or even smaller than this. So I'm talking about the Jeep Avenger, which lands later this year, the Alfa Romeo Junior, which is coming next year, and there's also the mechanical relative of this thing called the Zeekr X, which is going to land before the end of 2024. But what exactly do you get for your money in the EX30? Of the three EX30 grades offered, the single motor extended range Ultra sits right in the middle, and it costs a sharp $66,290 before on-road costs. That pricing puts it in line with the Hyundai Kona Electric extended range N-Line, the Renault Megane E-Tech, and the top spec Jeep Avenger. But it's a lot more affordable than a Lexus UX Electric and a BMW iX2. And you get a lot of standard gear in the Volvo. It comes with a 12.3-inch central screen, Google services featuring Assistant, Maps and Play, 4 USB ports, 5G capability, a 9-speaker Harman Kardon sound system, panoramic sunroof, retractable exterior mirrors, heated steering wheel and front seats, and more. Wireless Apple CarPlay is not fitted yet, but it is coming via an over-the-air update very soon, according to Volvo. Check my written review at carsguide.com.au for more detail on the interior and tech features. There is a long and storied history of boxy Volvos, and I think the EX30 fits squarely in that box. See what I did there? There are enough Volvo cues, though, to identify the brand for sure, particularly up the front. You've got the Hammer of Thor headlights that are on pretty much every Volvo model at the moment, and you've obviously got the big badge there as well. Closed off grille, of course, because it is an EV. I love that this looks like a jacked up hatchback. Yes, it's an SUV, but really it's kind of hatchback vibes for sure. You've got the swept up window line here. You've got the two-tone colors. This is moss yellow, which is very bright. I probably wouldn't buy it, but you stand out in a crowd and you don't lose the car in a car park. With the black roof, you've of course got the EX30 badging here. My favorite design element of the EX30 by far has got to be these tail lights. They're LED. They're very Volvo, but a modern take on that classic Volvo design and just really beautifully executed. So inside the EX30 is Volvo's take on minimalist design, which differs from, say, Tesla's, which is, to my eye, kind of lazy and boring. This is minimalism with a Volvo twist, I would say. First up, I think one of the nicest features is this wool blend trim on the seats. I love this color, and the fabric feels really nice to touch as well. There's some strange inserts on the doors and the dash. So these look like they'd be fabric, but then you touch them and it's actually quite hard plastic. And throughout there is a mix of hard and soft plastic in the cabin. Some design elements are very cool. So this said fabric looking hard plastic swoops around to take up the entire dash, just a little section between the top of the dash and just under the windscreen, and it just looks really neat. The whole dash looks like it's floating. That floating element continues with the door handles, which also look like they're floating, and again, it's just a really cool design element. Just below the windscreen is a soundbar, a Harman Kardon soundbar. It's a 9-speaker stereo in this particular grade, and it's just integrated so beautifully into the car. It's a really clever design element as well as being functional. Other elements include these cool vertical air vents. Obviously you've got the screen dominating most of the dash here. And then there is this squared off steering wheel, which sort of looks cool and it feels nice. The leather feels nice. Is it necessary? Not really. But overall, the minimalist look works, but it does come with some frustrations. So there's a lot of quirky convenience and tech features in this car that straddle that line between being quite useful and being a bit annoying. So strap in, because I'm going to try and cover off most of them. If you buy an EX30, it would probably pay to sit with the dealer and go through a lot of these features when you pick up the car. Otherwise, you'll spend a good portion of the first week of ownership looking through the manual, which conveniently is located right here, among a bunch of other things that are housed in this screen, pretty much all of the functions of the car. Now, there are a few ways to get in and out of the EX30. There is a proximity key that works intermittently. Sometimes you'll be standing next to the car waiting for it to unlock with the key in your pocket and nothing will happen. Other times it's really sensitive, so you'll walk away but not far and you're kind of just hovering near the car and it'll keep unlocking and locking and unlocking. And it has a really shrill, shrieking noise when it locks the car. Thankfully, in the settings here, you can turn that off, which I've done because it was piercing. Anyway, moving on. Another way to get into this car is by using a key card and tapping the B pillar. There is a sensor there that unlocks and locks the car for you. And if you want to go fully tech friendly, then you can just use the EX30 app and unlock and lock the car that way too. As well as looking good, these seats are really comfortable. There's ample support and they're just really cushy. You could certainly do a road trip and feel quite comfortable, as long as the driving range allows it, of course. Volvo knows how to do a good seat, and that's evident here in the EX30. It's pretty easy to find a good seating position as well. The driving position's great. There's lots of glass. Yes, the rear windscreen is kind of small, but there's good visibility around the front and the sides, and the power adjustable seats are quite clever. There's just one knob on the side of each of the seats. Usually they have a bunch of different knobs for, you know, lumbar and all that kind of stuff, but it's just one control, which helps to minimize plastics and things like that. So this EX30 comes standard with a full panoramic glass roof, which has proven to be a terrible idea in a country like Australia, where the sun is really, really hot in summer. A bunch of other brands do this, I think Tesla, Polestar. Thankfully, in this, you can get an accessory sun blind. So other convenience and storage elements of the interior include the wireless phone charger down here. It's like an upright charger. It does slide around a bit though. There's only kind of one slot for it. You could fit an iPad down there, but it does slide around when you corner. The central space here is quite long and goes through towards the back as well, and you can flip the little lids up and you've got a more secure spot under here where the USB-C ports are. That is quite a good space, I would say. This looks like it would have some storage in it, and it sort of does, but let me explain. It took me quite some time to work out how to use the cup holders in this car. My partner and I struggled to work it out. We had to consult the manual. Let me show you. It is in here. Tap it, and then they pull out like that. And you can either have it as an open space like that, or you can have the two separate cup holders. But then to close it, it's a two motion situation. So is it a clever use of space? Yes. Is it annoying? Yes. And there are a few things like that in this car. Another thing I had to consult the manual about were the icons on the steering wheel. There are no words, it's all basically just icons, so you kind of have to work it out. There's one that certainly looks like it would be the adaptive cruise and the lane keeping and all that kind of stuff, but that's actually activated on the gear shifter, which is on a stalk on the steering wheel. That's a feature I used to hate in cars like Mercedes-Benz, but increasingly Hyundai do it, obviously Volvo are doing it, and I actually think it's much more convenient. And the only other stalk, of course, is your windscreen wipers and indicators. So the door bins are quite large and you can fit quite a few things in there, but there's no separate space that holds in your drink bottle. So it just kind of moves around quite a bit when you're driving. It's a bit inconvenient. They should have a little thing holding it in. The glove box is not over here in front of the passenger like a normal car. No, it is under the screen. How do you open it? Like this, through the screen. Ooh, quite small space in there. You can fit the manual and not a whole lot else. So the EX30 comes with the Google operating system, and that includes Maps, which has been fantastic, and of course the voice assistant, so you can ask the car to do things. Once you get your head around this screen, it's actually quite clever. It's in a couple of different parts. It is customizable. everything is in here, and I do find that frustrating, and I would prefer buttons. But again, once you take the time to kind of understand how this screen works, it's great. You can log into your own Google account, of course, which is great. It's bringing up things like My Home and that sort of thing. So actually, it's ultimately quite convenient. There's a lot less to talk about back here in the second row compared to the front row, but let's start with the space. Now I'm sitting behind my 6-foot-something driving position, and I have limited knee room. Toe room's a bit tight as well, but I've got ample headroom, thanks to the glass sunroof that I don't love. But it does come in handy when we're talking about headroom. In terms of the space on the floor, it's pretty flat, of course. There's no need for a transmission tunnel being an EV, so that's quite handy for loading items in and out. There's no fold down armrest or anything like that, and there are also no air vents in the back, but there are a few other conveniences. There's a little nook here to pop your phone in. This is also where you raise and lower the power windows. That's housed here like the front ones are at the front of the console in the center rather than being on the door. 2 more USB-C ports back here. You won't fit huge bottles in the door cavities, unfortunately, but you can use the space under the console with this handy little storage box here that is removable. So a few little conveniences for the back seat passengers. So this is very much a city-sized SUV, so you're not going to have a gigantic amount of cargo space, but at 318 litres, it's decent. There is underfloor storage, quite a bit of underfloor storage here with a couple of nooks on either side. And underneath there is the tyre repair kit. You do not get any form of spare wheel with the Volvo. Now, those rear seats fold down 60/40 and they basically fold down flat. So you've got a really lovely loading area there. And if you need a little bit more space, up the front is a front trunk or frunk, and that holds 7 litres of cargo. Right now, it's got the charging cable in there, which is incredibly handy. As the name suggests, the all-electric EX30 single-motor extended range Ultra comes with a single motor, driving the rear wheels only, and it delivers power and torque of 200 kilowatts and 343 newton meters respectively. These are healthy numbers and more than a number of its rivals. Volvo says you can cover 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in just 5.3 seconds in this grade. The EX30 uses a 69 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery, and that allows for a driving range on the WLTP cycle of up to 465 kilometres. Volvo claims energy consumption of 17.5 kilowatt-hours per 100 kilometres, and over a week of mixed city, freeway and some regional driving, we saw a figure of 18.3 kilowatt-hours. It has regenerative braking and a one-pedal drive mode, but you can't adjust the sensitivity of the regen braking. It does, however, come to a full stop. The EX30 is fitted with a Type 2 port for AC and CCS port for DC charging. It can charge from depleted to 100% battery in about 8 hours using a home wall box, while using a DC fast charger to get from 10 to 80% should take around 28 minutes. Charging overnight using a household plug and the charging cable that's included with the car can take up to 38 hours, but a 30 to 80% charge I did at my folks' place took about 16 hours. So once you're behind the wheel of the EX30 doing what this thing is intended to do, which is drive, it's easy to forget some of the quirks that are frustrating about this car because it drives really well. So the EX30's got the kind of acceleration we've come to expect from an EV. Thankfully though, it doesn't have that kind of neck-snappingly quick push you back in the seat sort of acceleration of some EVs that I think can be unnecessary, particularly for a little city SUV like this. It's just smooth, it's linear, it's just nicely done. So the EX30 has that thing that a number of EVs have, which is when you're driving over undulating road, it feels quite bottom heavy, and it's just honestly down to the sheer weight of the vehicle, the weight of the batteries, and the positioning of the batteries obviously under the floor of the car. So it just feels quite heavy as you're going over them and a little bit floaty. It's not a deal breaker in this car, and I've felt it in other vehicles where it's much worse, but it's definitely noticeable. So the steering in the EX30 is nice and sharp and direct, and the good news is you can also adjust the feel of it. So if you want it a little bit lighter or heavier, you can do that here in the settings via the screen. So this particular EX30 I'm driving is fitted with 20-inch alloys, but the grade comes standard with 19s. Even with that in mind, I'm really impressed with the ride quality of this thing. I've driven over some pretty crummy roads in the last week of having this car, and it's just handled all of the different surfaces really well. It's only incredibly sharp ruts and horrible roads that you really notice anything. It's quite compliant. So the dimensions of the EX30 make it quite a breeze to park. And it's got a reasonably tight turning circle as well. It could be a little bit tighter, but no complaints at all, and it's just easy to fit into small spaces. The cabin's actually quite hushed. It's well insulated from outside noise, aside from a bit of road noise depending on the surface. But other than that, you can hear the hum of Volvo's synthetic EV sound, and that's really about it.
The EX30 is yet to be crash tested by Euro NCAP or ANCAP, but being a Volvo, it comes with a long list of standard safety gear. You get AEB with pedestrian, vehicle and cyclist detection, low-speed rear auto braking, and driver assist gear like a lane change assistant that changes lanes for you if the conditions are met. The system works well, as does the responsive adaptive cruise and the excellent lane keeping aid. As always, check my written review at carsguide.com.au for full safety spec. The EX30 is covered by a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and the battery is covered for 8 years. These are standard terms for the category. Roadside assist also covers you for 8 years. The servicing schedule is every 2 years or 30,000 kilometres, which is great. And in even better news, service costs are built into the price of the vehicle, so there's no ongoing maintenance costs.
The Volvo EX30 is one of the most intriguing cars I've driven in quite a long time. On the one hand, you've got this zippy, comfortable, adorable little electric car that will suit a lot of city folk. On the other hand, you've got a vehicle that has some packaging and tech solutions that can actually be quite frustrating. But no doubt, if you put in the time and effort to get to know the Volvo EX30, you will be rewarded. For more information on the Volvo EX30, head to carsguide.com.au.